Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining in at Dr. Judy WTF, What the Freud. And tonight is going to be an episode that's going to cover a lot of ground, the title being Guilting and Shaming as a Form of Narcissistic Abuse. And I've done this topic before with my life coach, Judy Epstein. It's just such a prevalent topic, and so many people are caught in this trap. So, why do you think people are such suckers for being guilted and shamed? We're going to get into that because there is a template behind this, and the template is that people are groomed by their blueprint, and the blueprint is what I refer to as the family: mom, dad, grandmother, grandfather, and all the multi-generations of people who set the blueprint for the child. And then as a result of these injuries of guilting and shaming and blaming the child, a lot of mental anguish occurs and a lot of chaos, defenses, and breakdowns occur, as I will be pointing out via my mind map. So a little bit about me. My name is Dr. Judy Rosenberg, and I direct the Psychological Healing Center. I have a beautiful team of people who do this mind map therapy, and we do lots of Skype. We do lots of international work. And for those of you who have not downloaded a copy of my book, Be the Cause, Healing Human Disconnect, it's free and you can have it. And all you have to do is request it. And the book really does connect the dots to the cause of the problems, how they manifest, how they break us down, and how to morph out. And for those of you who want to take the next step in healing, you can also get involved with mind map therapy, Be the Cause mind map therapy. Purchase the video that I created, the video that is still available at $195, covering all the panels. And if you are suffering from narcissistic abuse, we put together the most pointed video hosted by my life coach, Judy Epstein. It is called The Journey to Healing from Narcissistic Abuse, the mind map journey to healing from narcissistic abuse. So let's get right into this subject, and let's talk about why people are vulnerable and why they fall for this, and the cheap tricks that narcissists play to guilt and shame people, gaslight people, drive them crazy, and direct the energy, the blame, away from themselves. You know, the old tactic of if you want to make sure that you divert, then you finger point at the other party, and by doing that, people think that they're going to divert the blame away from themselves and the responsibility away from themselves. So let's go into the mind map. And I also want you to know this is a call-in show, so please feel free to call in. And that number is 323-524-2599. I want to thank a particular person, Kevin, we'll keep him anonymous, for an article titled 13 Fake Apologies Used by Narcissists. And before I launch into that article, I want to give you a little backdrop on why and how narcissists play the shame game, an article by Julie Hall. So what is narcissism? I will keep repeating how I see it because I think it's very relevant that people see it less as a label and less as a thing in and of itself. It is a system gone wrong. And the system gone wrong starts with the blueprint, mom and dad, and often entails parents who lack empathy. They put their own feelings before their children. Oftentimes they will use and manipulate their children to satisfy their own needs. And there are plenty of examples of how they do this. And the consequences are very, very devastating on the psyche of the child. And often the child will grow up either being a people pleaser, or sometimes they'll identify with the aggressor. If you can't beat them, join them, and they will develop narcissistic defenses themselves. So let's get into this article. And by the way, if you want to interrupt me, please do. Call in I want to hear about blaming and shaming in your life and how it has caused you distress and damage. So, simply put, guilt is something I did, something bad that I did, while shame is I am bad. So let's make that distinction. I'm guilty. I did something bad. I'm shameful. I am bad. So, oftentimes, what happens as a result of narcissistic abuse is that the child is shamed in some ways. And deep down inside, that child will feel that there's something bad about them. But of course, they want to cover this up. So, what do? Many of the episodes I talk about overvaluing themselves and devaluing themselves and overvaluing others and devaluing others. And that's what they do. So, to cover up this horrible feeling of shame, they might huff and puff and look extra special and extra grandiose, and then they will come crashing down when they become vulnerable. And we will talk about what vulnerable looks like in this narcissistic system gone wrong. Narcissists rarely, if ever, feel guilt, but are deeply tormented by shame. Why don't they feel guilt? Because they tend to project their guilt. Narcissists, as many of you know, narcissists typically they lack compassion. That's the apathy part, and that's why it's so difficult, because they know how to fake empathy. They know how to have certain skills that will fool people into thinking that they really do care. They have a lot of skills as to how to speak to people and appear as though they are sorry, or that they are self-aware, or that they are pillars of the community. And they're really good at it. And I've done several shows on overt narcissism and covert narcissism. Please check them out. I have tons and tons of videos up there, so you can keep learning and psychoeducating yourself so that you don't become victim to their tricks. So the shame game. Shaming is a common and especially damaging form of narcissistic abuse. Narcissists use shame to do a lot of things, project their inadequacies. So that's a good one. So instead of feeling inadequate and being vulnerable, they will just make you feel inadequate. Good trick. Lots of people buy into it. Externalize their self-loathing. That's kind of the same, in my opinion. They start loathing other people other than loathing themselves. It's easier. It's kind of the same thing. They're projecting their loathing of themselves onto other people. And then they make others look and feel inferior. This is a good one. It's part of the loathing process, but then people who converse with them, interact with them, will oftentimes feel less than. And this is a score for the narcissist, because the more they can make other people feel less than, the more they can feel superior. Some other ways and tricks they do to undermine is they will manipulate others to blame themselves for their abuser's behaviors. So imagine that. You're being abused, and then you end up blaming yourself for that abuse. So these are twists and turns used by the narcissist. By planting shame in other people, this is a good one. They install a button that they can press at any time to manipulate and punish. And so who's vulnerable? Well, the most vulnerable are children, because they want to please their parents. And they will please their parents at any cost, because, as you know, parents are their end all and be all. From our parents, we're supposed to get nurturing, we're supposed to get protection, we're supposed to feel as though we have somebody who has our backs. It's just that in the case of narcissistic parents, they have their own backs and not yours. And so children are most vulnerable because parents can set them up to feel this shame. And then, as I was saying before, as the article was saying before, then they can just easily press the shame button and boom, 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 down they go into chaos, defenses, and breakdowns. So this is a good time for me to go over the mind map so that you can understand my thinking and how I process this pain and the system gone wrong. So if you look at panel number 1, it's labeled wounds of childhood. There are 5 of them that I speak most about: physical abuse, verbal abuse, neglect, sexual abuse, and control smothering. In the case of narcissistic parents, it's most likely that because they put their own feelings before yours, they will abandon you emotionally. They will also demean, devalue, and destroy in words. They might be punitive to manipulate. They may control you by manipulating your world and what you're allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do, including what careers you can have and which ones you can't have, who you're going to marry, how you're going to think, and the list goes on. And so there's not a lot of space here for separation and individuation, because if you dare go out of their box, they're not going to be very happy about that. And then they can just press that shame and blame and guilt button and draw you right back into their system. And that's how you get groomed. Okay, so you don't just wake up and become a victim to this. It's a grooming process. And the grooming process starts when you are very, very little and when you need the bond of the parent. And unfortunately, instead of a healthy bond, a toxic bond is formed. And in this formation of the toxic bond, the child will do anything to get that parent's love. Now, of course, they don't know that what they're getting is not love, but it's the only thing they know. So they're getting food. They might be getting some smiles and pats on the head when they're compliant. They might get rewarded for taking the blame and shame of their parents' inadequacies. And all of these are set up as reward systems for the child. And the toxic bond comes about because the child is, as I say many times over on many of my videos, the child is in a hostage situation. So they have to comply, because where are they going to go? Pack their bags and move out at age 2, 3, 4, 7, 8, 10, and then be vulnerable to the scary world, ahead of them. So they don't have much of a choice. And this is a call-in show, everybody. So please do call in. And that number again is 323-524-2599. I cannot tell you how many people feel that they are steeped in shame and guilt, and they ruminate about how horrible they are, and they ruminate about how guilty they are. And we have to reverse this damage in their psyche, because if this damage is not reversed, what happens is, instead of expressing their feelings, which they cannot to their narcissistic mother, father, primary caregiver, they cannot, because there's punishment involved, there's rejection involved. And so instead of being able to express, they either swallow their feelings, which is a form of implosion, and get depressed and anxious and confused and shut down, or they will explode their feelings onto other people because they don't dare share their true feelings with their parents because the cost is too great. So this explosion can come in the form of exploding on their siblings, or maybe they'll explode on their dogs and scapegoat their animals, or scapegoat their peers in the form of bullying. There are lots of ways that they can explode. And on a macro level, which I talk about quite a bit, imagine if people are unhealed, then there's just a lot of people out there, they're either imploding, which can lead to suicidality because their self-harm turns inward and there's nowhere to take the pain just deeper within until they can't hold it anymore. Or the macro explosion comes in the form of, well, ultimately wars, right? Where everybody is literally blowing up everyone else. And then on other levels, we see a lot of mass hurting, shooting, so on and so forth, mass destruction. And so, what we're looking at is we're looking at a lot of very, very pained people who don't know how to heal and express their emotions. And so, the mind map is really a pathway to healing so that you don't end up exploding, you don't end up imploding, you have a pathway to unload this. And so by doing so, you clean up your own childhood injuries so that you can be a contributor to the human race. So I know I veered off into the global manifestation of it, but it's real. So the only way that we can heal in globally is by healing individually. So, how does this shame game work? Okay, this shame game consequences. It can lead to anxiety because it's that learned helplessness. You're trapped. You can't go left, you can't go right, you have to comply. So, that anxiety, you can't fight, you can't flee, you're just kind of stuck in the system, and that's the anxiety. You then could turn that energy inward into self hatred. You can withdraw and become secretive and not share your feelings with anyone because, of course, one of the consequences of this horrible system gone wrong is that trust is broken. So once trust is broken, then there's only one thing left to do: control people, or just shut down and withdraw, or go into a bunch of different defense mechanisms, which can be a form of withdrawal as well. So if you put the mind map up for a minute, I'm going to kind of start connecting the dots so that you could see what's going on here. So panel 1 are all those wounds of childhood. And then panel 2 are these reactions that I'm talking about. And then panel 3 are all the messages that people encode into the fiber of their being, messages like, I'm a bad person, shame on me, I'm terrible, I'll never be loved, I'll never be good enough. And this is that that lever that gets set up, that button that gets set up and then pushed by the narcissistically abusive person, and takes the person down into, if you look at panel 4, 5, 6, you'll see chaos and defenses and breakdowns. And this is the territory of the mind map that I call the Freud, because it's a repetitive cycle. Freud talks about the repetition principle, and this is the repetition principle, because you don't move on to panels 7, 8, 9, which are the healing panels. You get stuck. You get stuck in 4, 5, 6, 4, 5, 6, and this button keeps getting detonated, and you keep getting devastated. And then the self-esteem lowers even further. And then people go into ugly defense mechanisms to try to protect their feelings. Defense mechanisms like drinking, drugs, shutting down, excessive use of computers and cell phones, shopping, all kinds of defense mechanisms, obsessive compulsive behaviors. And people are very, very creative in the way they defend themselves. And so when these defenses break and blow, because they do, because they're not really healthy defenses and they can only hold for so long, crash bang, you're in panel number 6 and you're having a full-blown breakdown. And these breakdowns come in many forms. They can be a full breakdown in your mental health, leading to hospitalization. It could be breakdown in the form of a divorce. It could be a breakdown in the form of your health. Your body takes the toll. Bessel van der Kolk, Dr. van der Kolk talks about how the body keeps the score. And sometimes we not only break down psychologically, we're also breaking down physically. That's because the mind and the body are that connected. And so when we're vulnerable, we hold tension in our our shoulders, other muscle groups. We are more prone to autoimmune diseases. We have less resistance to fight other bacteria. Now we have the coronavirus, and our best way to defend is, other than washing hands and staying safe and staying socially distant, is to beef up our immune system. But if we're emotionally, we're being torn apart, our emotional system is affecting our physical system, so our immunity is being compromised. So look at all these consequences, and this is what I see in therapy: people withdrawing, fear of intimacy, addiction, self-harm, externalized anger, internalized anger, or sometimes dissociation in the case where people go psychotic, because dissociation is one way to defend against being in the reality of hell. If people are in a hellish world, they would just rather leave and go elsewhere. So there's just a lot, unfortunately, of suffering that takes place when you are part of this system gone wrong. So I want to get into 13 fake apologies used by narcissists. This is that wonderful article. Thank you so much, Kevin, for this article. And if anybody wants to call in, please do, because this is how they trick us into making us believe that they're empathic, that they really mean that they're sorry, that you're the crazy one. I apologize. What's wrong with you? Are you having a hard time hearing me? Are you having a hard time accepting my apology? Look how hard you are on me. Oh my God, do I have to apologize again and again? What's wrong with you? So this is a great article by, let's see if I can read this, Dan Newharth, PhD, MFT. 13 fake apologies used by narcissists. And I hear this in my treatment room, especially when I'm doing couples work, and just to let you guys know how I do couples work. I don't feel couples work is where people should start. I think that people have to do their individual work before we do the couples work, because if they don't do the individual work, what I end up being is some sort of a referee watching people just project all over each other, and the therapy session becomes a trigger happy, or I should say unhappy zone, and it's not very productive. So for those of you who are suffering in your relationship, your marriage, the best way to approach it is to do your healing. Hopefully your partner does his or her healing, and then we bring it together. And after people are able to self-reflect and self-correct and understand their wounds and develop self-empathy, because see, can't have empathy for another human being until you can feel for yourself and you can understand the pain that's been inflicted on you. And so it's the best pathway to healing is to work on yourself. Is that a call-in? I'm not sure if that's a buzzer or if
yeah, we have a call-in.
Is a call-in?
Yes.
Okay, hi. You are on air with Dr. Judy. So what is your name, please?
My name is Dahir. Can you hear me, Dr. Judy?
Yeah, hi, Dahir. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from England, London.
Oh, very, very nice to meet you. And what time is it there?
It's 24 minutes past 4 in the morning.
Well, oh my God. So what are you doing up so late?
Okay, so I am watching your program because I've been following you since 2016.
Well, thank you.
And this is, you're welcome. You have no idea, Dr. Judy, the impact your teachings had on me and my life. I bought your book a long time ago, And today, actually, now I'm actually finalizing my enrollment to clinical psychology. I'm doing master's degree in psychology.
Congratulations.
So thank you very much. I've been accepted. I have a degree in psychology already, but now I want to do it further. Yeah. So yeah, I'm so excited to talk to you. I really wanted to thank you in person one day because of your teaching, the way you put things together. Your system is very easy to understand, and you touch everything. So for that, I'm so grateful.
Thank you very, very much. And I would love to meet you personally. And, you know, I have a mind map counselor in London. For those of you who don't know.
Right.
No.
I didn't know, right.
Pardon me?
I said, sorry, I didn't know. I didn't know they have one in London. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a mind map therapist in London, Christiana Davidson. You can look her up on my website. If you go to drjudywtf.com, it'll take you to my website, and she's underneath the team. She's fabulous. And my goal is to have people who speak various languages, because certainly I don't speak very many. I'll tell you, I speak English, obviously. I speak a little French. I speak pretty decent Hungarian, believe it or not. I'm sure there's not a huge demand for that, but maybe some. And I speak a little bit of Spanish and maybe a smidgen of Hebrew, and that's it. I am going to be needing people who speak various languages, because there's a large world out there, and I am passionate about getting the mind map system out to people who are not just English speaking. So keep that in mind. Okay. What language do you speak?
Yeah. I'm actually I'm from Somalia, and I speak Arabic as well. So I speak three languages now fluently, actually. English, Arabic, and Somali.
Oh my goodness. So be in touch with me, because seriously, we need people who speak Arabic and other languages to deliver this beautiful mind map system to the world. So tell me, what would you like to ask me now that you stayed up so late? Share with me any questions.
I mean, I've been raised by a narcissistic mother, and me coming from a background that doesn't really understand psychology and doesn't even respect, mental illness and all that.
Okay.
It was really hard for me. Yeah, it's a very, very system gone wrong. We're swimming in there, and if you trying to explain things to them, they won't understand as well. So we're in a third world kind of mentality, and it's been really, really difficult. However, me being the first person to go to university in my whole family,
wow,
I found out my mom has a narcissistic personality disorder through the textbooks I was reading. It was part of my module at university, and I'll never forget, it was 3:00 in the morning, and I said, oh my God, I found the name for my mom's problems, the things that they caused me and with my brothers and sisters as well.
That there's so much information today about narcissism, and certainly I do a lot of episodes on narcissism. Yutsetsky, my life coach, does a lot of podcasts on the subject as well. And people are waking up, so they're no longer fooled. And yes, they still fall into this hole, and they still get triggered and guilted and shamed, which is why I'm doing this particular topic again, because it's so prevalent. But the more you know, the less of a victim you become. So congratulations that you took the time to study, and that the light bulb went off, and that now you're putting two and two together, and then you see the system gone wrong, and why your mother was not able to own her own stuff. She was not able to empathize. And so tell me a little bit about what made you realize, what were some of the qualities that you noticed about her that woke you up to the fact that she just doesn't have the empathy?
Yeah, one of the things that that really stood for me was describing personality disorder. It was lack of empathy and just being everything revolves around her,
Yes.
and she never apologizes. When I read these bits of information, well, they're talking about lack of empathy
Yeah.
and rigidness in the way they deal with their children,
Mhm.
and selfishness, and low self-esteem, and and entitlement, actually,
Yes.
self-entitlement. And yeah, so and all these things, when I put them together, I said, oh my god, this is really my mom. And then I couldn't believe it, so I went home to my sister, who was younger than me, and I hugged her. I said, listen, uh, we need to sit down. And she goes, no problem. And then I sat her down, we talked about this, she cried, and I spoke to my brother. And the good news is that we're all in the same page. So we only three people, brothers and sisters, and we all agreed that she has a personality disorder, and they believed me. And my brother is older than me. He got inspired. He graduated from psychology as well, and he did a master's degree in health psychology. Is going to graduate this year as well. So I'm very lucky, because what if my sister said to me, no, your mom is not like that. So, I love her to bits. So it'll be really hard for me to cut her off. So we are on the same page. We talk every day. We know how my mom operates now. We did not cut her off completely,
Mhm.
because I personally think, that's in my opinion, I think I wouldn't be happy if I cut her completely. I mean, other people might disagree with me, but for me, because I don't live with her anymore. So she lives in London, of course, but what I do is I manage our interactions. So whenever she violates my boundaries, straight I cut her off for 2 weeks, and then I tell her, listen, I love you, but if you start disrespecting me or trying to demean me like before, that's not going to happen. And then luckily as well, I would say for the past year, she's been a little bit, I don't want to say better, but she understood that I know what she's all about. So she's very careful, because she's scared that we all abandon her. Yeah. Sorry
Mhm.
for turning long. Yes.
Amazing that you were able to create something where she's a little bit walking on eggshells. Usually it's the family that's walking on eggshells. It's just that as she ages, you're right. She doesn't want to be abandoned, so that she's going to learn how to speak maybe a little bit more elegantly to you, so that she can have the human
Yes.
connection. So good for you that you were able to, in some ways, behavior modify her. It's just that, as you know, I don't think the empathy part could be modified. So just because she's behaving and giving you the right words and so on, doesn't mean that internally she has made a paradigm shift from apathy to empathy. That takes a lot of work. And as you know, narcissism is such a deep injury that people literally they throw away their empathy for other people, or they don't develop it because their parents don't teach it to them, and they cut their heart out. They cut their heart out,
Yes.
and right, and
Uh,
instead of having a heart and connecting, they use the control button to manipulate and shame and blame, and that's how they play the game.
yeah, and you're absolutely spot on. And if it wasn't for the education I had about narcissism and how it really affected me, the first thing, when I identified her as a narcissist, I didn't just say, okay, you know what, Dahir, maybe it's just some kind of symptoms that resemble your mom, but be careful, maybe she's not. And then afterwards, completely, my mom is full blown narcissist. I mean, we all been affected by it. Now that even her friends sometimes, when I see them and say, oh, they call me, they say, how are you doing, Dahir? You okay? I said, yeah, I'm fine. How are you doing? How have you seen your mom? I said, no, yeah, I've seen her recently. So even her friends cut her off because they basically, I think because she's lacking empathy, and now she's very lonely anyway. I don't want to take other people's time, but she's very lonely now, and that's why she's behaving. Otherwise, I know my mom. She will, she has no empathy at all. Her empathy is her interest.
Couple of questions. First of all, a statement that I want to make. You're very fortunate. Your sisters, your inner circle, your siblings are understanding of your explanation, because oftentimes what happens is that the mother is so idealized by the children that she will create a sibling rivalry, and she will set them up to be flying monkeys against each other, so that if anybody veers out of the system, they're going to be cut off, maybe financially, emotionally, whatever emotions they have to give, or fake emotions they have to give. So it's very fortunate that your siblings are on the same page and they get it. And then the other aspect that I wanted to ask you is that in Somalia, is there a cultural tendency to idealize parents? So is the mother?
Oh my God! I mean, this topic. I could go on with this topic, Dr. Judy. Your last episode was honoring your narcissistic, honoring your mother and father at what cost, right?
Yes.
And you have no idea how that just made me so validated, and it was incredible. You know, I can't even talk about it because I'm very emotional about this.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And with Somalia, yeah. Go on. You can say, yeah. Go on. Sorry.
Because people, it's so deep. I mean, somehow this goes so deep into people's psyche that it takes. Well, I'm very grateful that the mind map is actually a pathway. It's not just a bunch of talking, sitting down, and you know how therapy can get. You just come back week after week after week, and then 6 months later, a year later, and so on. But you've got to ask people the right questions. And you also have to go into the culture, because if you don't get information about the cultural rules and the cultural norms, then you're missing a big piece of the therapy. And that's why I personally am so interested in cultural rules and norms and styles and so on. And I'm so interested in translating this into all kinds of languages, because there's so many people who actually put the culture before mental health. Cultures are supposed to be beautiful. They're supposed to hold people together. It's just that when there's a clash between the culture and the mental health of a human being, of course, I'm going to say this, I'm a psychologist. And even if I wasn't a psychologist, I was you have to put mental health first. Because if you build a culture on lack of mental health, then you're building another system gone wrong that's eventually going to go into chaos and eventually break down. So there's no way.
Yeah, I mean,
if you build something with a lack of structure, authenticity, truth, mental health, empathy, if you build something without those ingredients, watch out. You're just headed into WTF, what the Freud, chaos, defenses, and breakdowns. It's not going to work. So okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. Just on the final note, what I'm trying to say is that the you know, honoring our parents regardless of how abusive they are, it's something. You can't go there. It's very sacred. Even if she abuses you, even if your father or mother abusing you, you can't say anything. It's part of the culture, unfortunately. And even the religious teachings of what's it called? I don't want to say I'm Muslim, and I'm you know, I don't have anything against my religion actually, but the scholars, the you know, the religious scholars, what they're doing is, instead of addressing these issues, is still they're guilting the adult children. For example, now if I complain about the fact that my mom abused me, they'll say, you know what? Okay, you know what? She's your mom. try to deal with her in a nice way, you know, honor her and all that. So it's actually traumatizing, to be honest with you, if I can say that.
If there's no,
So yeah.
you know, the enlightened witness that I talk about, where there's a person that stands by you and says, "Oh my God, this is tragic. You're not crazy. You've been made crazy." Now, you're not required to hurt your mother.
Yeah, I mean, if it wasn't, if it wasn't for the awareness that I thank God for that. If it wasn't for my awareness and me making research and educating myself, I really think that especially my sister would have gone crazy, to be honest with you, because I can see her now. She put on weight a lot recently because she's been reconnecting with I don't want to call it reconnecting with my mom, but she's been a little bit, dealing with my mom in a, I don't know how to put it, but it's her choice. And I told her, listen, trying to be, to stay away. She goes, yeah, I know, I'm aware of now. What I'll try to do is I'll try to manage it and trying to put her under my control. But overall, I would say it's been hell. And I think it's my turn now, to be honest with you, to deliver this to other people. I have many problems because of being raised by a narcissist. I have anxieties, and all that. However, but I'm dedicated. My goal is to open my own whatever center, because this is a master's degree in clinical psychology, which is gonna only take 1 year. So yeah, that's my plan, Dr. Judy. And I'm sorry for taking your time.
No, this is a very, very important subject, and I know that you've been affected deeply by this, and also affected by the knowledge that you're acquiring, affected in a good way. And so sometimes our enlightenment witnesses are the people who are teaching you what's up, what the Freud is going on. So I'm going to just give some examples of fake apologies. Please stay in touch with me. Feel free to write me. Okay. And
okay.
I really, really appreciate your kind words. I'm so happy to know that I've had a positive impact in your life, and congratulations.
No, you did, you did. And this is not, I know, maybe because you've been dealing with so many different people, and maybe you heard this before, but for me, it's very important that I say this to you personally, because you just changed my life, I would say, and thank you very much. And I'll be so glad to work with you as well. When you said maybe we need someone like you who speaks Ling, I said, "What? Are you crazy? What? Really?"
Just come and say hello to me here in Sherman Oaks, California, or maybe I'll take a trip to London with one day again. I've been there. It's an amazing.
No problem. No problem. And yeah, I'll email you. Your email is on your website, obviously, right?
Absolutely. So be in touch, and I'm just going to go through some fake apologies. Thank you so much for your kind words. And
okay, no problem. Okay. You're welcome. Bye. Bye for now. Bye.
Okay. Bye. Okay. Thank you very much. That's always so appreciated, and it makes a difference to me. The acknowledgement makes a difference, because as I was saying to somebody today, I'm just sitting here and I don't know what impact I'm having. So it's beautiful to hear these words. Is that another call-in? Is that another call-in?
Yeah, we have another call-in.
Okay, I'll take it. Yeah, hi. And who am I speaking to, please?
Dale from Washington.
Dale, welcome. I think you called in before, yes?
Yes, I have. Hi, Dr. Judy.
Hi.
The last caller from London was really amazing to listen to, because it's that evolution from being a reactionary to a observer and being in control of your own life, which is so amazing.
You know what? Before I ask you questions, I just want to give some examples of fake apologies, okay? And then you give me your thoughts on it, and then I'll pick it up with whatever questions that you have, what's been on your mind. But look, fake apologies by narcissists. Unbelievable. Love this article. Thank you, Kevin, for this. Article by Dan Newhart. So amazing. Authentic and heartfelt apologies are rarely given by narcissists. Wouldn't you agree, Dale?
Oh, for sure. They don't
Sure.
want to admit that they're at fault on anything.
It's just nothing authentic. And oftentimes, to protect themselves, what they do is instead of really landing an apology, they make matters worse. So here are some fake ones. I love this article. Okay, here's one. I was just kidding. I was just trying to help. I was just playing devil's advocate. How do you like that? People really buy this stuff. The shift the blame apology. I'm so sorry that you think that I did something wrong. Well, where's the apology there? I'm so sorry that you think that I did something wrong. Maybe they did do something wrong. I'm so sorry that you feel I'm a bad person. I'm sorry that you're just you're too sensitive. So there's a bunch of them. I'll try to get to some of these juicy ones. They're just part of the pleasure I have is to bust these lies. The conditional apology. I'm sorry if something I said offended you. Conditional apologies fall short of a full apology. So, okay, I started in with this. And so, Dale, tell me what you had on your mind today in relationship to this topic.
Well, I think that I was a truth seeker in my family, and or a truth. What? That's not the term. What was it? A truth teller? A truth teller.
Yeah, that you like to bust the lies. I call it the emperor has no clothes person. You know, the little boy that says the emperor has no clothes. Everybody's saying, shh, be quiet. Don't let him know that he has no clothes. But it's, you know, or in my book, I talk about the Wizard of Oz and Dorothy and Toto and how Toto pulls the curtain on the Wizard of Oz and exposes him for the powerless person that he is. So, okay, that's what you're referring to. You're that person.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I think I evolved from finding out that approach wasn't received well by the narcissistic father.
Oh, really? Okay.
So then it became more of stay quiet on telling the truth, but become the fixer of problems so that issues didn't arise. And as a result, you get caught in that entanglement of you see the truth, you want to speak the truth, but you can't. And in effect, then you become the well, I became the fixer in the family, and it was my job to solve his problems before they became everyone's problems. And it was a tightrope to walk your whole life. And then I was thankful I mentioned to you that in my later years of discovering, just like this last caller, when you finally awaken, and I think in your book you call it evolving from the little eye to the big eye, and that you become in the zone. And I want you to elaborate a little bit more tonight on that, because I think what people have to understand, yes, there is this thing called narcissism, and you learn about it and you find out how it evolved in your family and what your role was. That's very important for you to wake up, because what you're trying to do is get out of being a reactionary and get to the level and graduating to, like this last caller and like myself personally I've done, is to become a observer and my own person, free of all of this guilt and anxiety and free of all of that, so that you can live a life and be creative and be happy and not have stress and no depression, which is exactly where I'm at right now. And I'm thankful to you.
It was a few months ago, and you're in this zone now where you're not the absorber. I have a line in the book where I talk about don't be the absorber, be the observer, and that's exactly where you're at. So you don't take things personally. Your panel 3 lever is no longer being detonated. You're not going into defense mechanism every time somebody tries to slight you or shame you or blame you or whatever they're trying to do to activate you. There's just no button to push. So congratulations. And I so admire when people that I know have been listening to me for a while, they become wisdom masters. What better thing can I observe than the people that are learning this become deactivated, and they become centered, and they become focused, and they let go of all of the negative core beliefs that they've been holding on. Do you know what a joy it is for me to watch people transform from being victims and hurt beings that are constantly at the effect of, to people like you who are now chilling and kicking back and enjoying life, and who cares what so and such and such thinks about me, right? Isn't that the best? I remember in the book, there's a line in the book. Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted you to have the validation and to know that you are having an effect. And I also wanted the listeners that were maybe still in the stages of learning all of this to understand that there is an end graduation time where you will finally know what's going on. You'll know what the system that you grew up in and how you were locked into it, because and it was an unconscious reaction to everything around you that made you under the thumb of other people who wanted to control you, the narcissistic control. But you have a way out. You have a way out of it, and you just have to say, look, I now understand that there is a way out. I just walked through that door, and I'm going to go out and now be my own person, and I'm not going to play that game. And it is that's the end goal. And I think I'm asking, if you would, is to please maybe put a little bit more emphasis on the end goal, so because people have to know there is that, and it's amazing. That's what we're looking for. And
thank you for reminding me of that, because I know I get into the problems and all of the pain and so on, the pain and the suffering, but people sometimes have to know that there is the prize at the end, and that prize I call freedom. Freedom,
exactly.
Being at the effect of. And that's what you've and that's what that's the goal here, is that you're not being pushed around. Your buttons are not active anymore, and no one can puppet you around like that.
And you cannot even think of, as a reactionary person, you're not even aware of how good that feeling is going to be. But believe the people, like the caller from London who just said he had reached that level. It is an amazing transformation. And when you hit it, and like you say, the aha moment, the light comes on, the awareness, you'll never go back. And all of a sudden, gradually, but it comes actually quickly, all of the anxiety, the depression, the pain, the suffering, the guilt, the shame, it just goes away.
Well, beautiful that you're there. And the other goal that I have is going to be a little bit more challenging, but sometimes when we grow to the point where we're really dedicating ourselves to self-correcting and self-reflecting, we want to be around growth partners, people who are also on the same journey. And somehow I have to figure out how to connect you guys so that you can form some sort of a way of being around people who are awake and aware and on this path, because it can get very lonely when you're evolving and the other people around you are not. It gets kind of boring and irritating, and it's always better to be around people who are able to reinforce the path that we're on. So I'll figure that out. And if anybody has any ideas, let me know, because a lot of people say to me, well, I don't know where to find people to talk to now, or friends or partners or whatever that are on a growth path. So I'll have to think about that. Okay, I'm going to be challenged by that. So
might be on a regional basis.
Regional basis? Okay.
Yep.
I'll eventually it'll, I don't know, some pathway to connection of the people who want to speak to each other and interface. Any other last minute thoughts or questions that
No, I'll let you go. I just wanted to, I think the caller from London said it all very well, and it was exciting to hear that his siblings were open and receptive, and it helped them as well.
But they didn't become flying monkeys. So thank you very much, Dale, for calling in. It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
All right, very good. Good night.
Good night. Take care. Okay, so just a couple of other very interesting fake apologies. And I'm going to continue this because I think that there's just so much to this. It's such an important topic. The conditional apology. I'm sorry if I offended you. The deja vu apology. I've already said I already said I was sorry. I've apologized for that for a dozen times. So where's the apology there? It's just basically communicating to you that you're irritating because you're picking up on something that deserves more than just come on, get off my back. The phantom apology. I regret that you felt upset. I regret that you felt upset. Well, maybe you upset me. I regret that mistakes were made. Well, maybe you made some. So where's the apology there? So you see the indirectness, the phantom apology, the whitewashing apology. I probably shouldn't have done that. Well, probably not. But what are you going to do about it now? So let's skip a little bit to a true apology. Okay, a true apology. I know we only have a handful of minutes, and I guess I'll skip my shrink that tune and maybe leave it for next time because there's just so much important material here. A true apology, by contrast, has most or all of the following characteristics. Doesn't contain conditions, doesn't minimize what was done, shows that the person apologizing understands and has empathy for the offense that they laid on the other person. They actually show remorse. They offer commitment to avoid repeating the hurtful behavior in the future. They offer to make amends or provide resolution and restitution. So a true apology has a definite different quality to it. Empathy, remorse, a bridge back to wholeness. And for those of you who happen to be Jewish, or even if you're not, we're heading into Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is enough to just say, I'm sorry. I was just giving an example to a person. We were laughing about this because the person's such a people pleaser, and he was acknowledging what a big people pleaser he was. I said, well, let's say I stole $10,000 from you. And then I said, I'm so sorry I did that. Would that be good enough? He goes, yeah, that would be good enough. I go, really? That would be good enough? Wouldn't you want me to make amends and give you that money back? And oh, yeah, right. Maybe you should give me that money back. But that's how manipulatable these kinds of injuries make people. That whole piece of it was just such a light bulb to this individual. Like, really? You as part of this, you should give the money back? Yes, you've got to make people whole. Apologies are not good enough. Self-reflect, self-correct, and clean up the mess, make people whole, and do your own healing so that you don't project on other people, you don't swallow all the feelings and hurt yourself and implode, and you find a pathway to self-express and to really self-correct so that you're becoming a part of the growing human race of empathy, the growing human race of becoming aware and awake to what it means to be humane. So thank you so much for joining in, and I will see you next week. Good night, everybody. Thank you.